Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. Excited to be with you. Interesting topic. This has to do with the Houthis launching more missiles at Israel. So, of course, there was in response, they retaliated, and I'm going to get into the details of what really took place and what mainstream media is not disclosing to you. So, they don't want you to know. So, in any event, very excited to be with you guys. Let me first say hi to our wonderful community, Liang, Rafael, Legon, as always. And I know yesterday you wrote something in French when you said hi to everybody. I remember that one. MRO, Lavon, good to see you. Willie Homan, as always. Laval Sangman, I am glad you were able to make it to watch live, to be here with us. So good to see you here. History Discovery, good to see you. AF Gordon, good to see you. Alice Talokin, good to see you. Guys, let's get into I have a lot to cover into this one here. So before I'll delve into all this, some housekeeping items. Remember to join me for my upcoming conversation with Dr. Warwick Pao, which will be on the 9th. Let me put the link for you in the chat box. You guys can check this out right there. And that's going to be on the 9th. And on the 12th, I will be having a conversation with Anna Malandak, Professor Anna Malandak. So there is something going on in the Philippines, and I know it's not getting coverage on it. So I'm not going to spoil it for you. I intend to keep this for the weekend, and when I am going to be having a conversation with Professor Anna Malandak. So good. All right, guys, let's get into our conversation here. So I'm going to be talking about the Houthis' attack on Israel in response to the bombing of Israel on the Hodeidah port. Well, you all know the Israelis been bombing that location for forever. What else there to destroy? So this is when you start to realize most of this bombing by the Israelis it's just for show, no more, no less. But one key aspect I need you to understand is the timing of it, because who is right now in Washington, D.C.? And none other than Bibi Netanyahu is. And most likely, my guess, it will be about to negotiate with Trump what to do with Gaza, because Jared Kushner, son-in-law of Donald Trump, has his eyes on the Gaza Strip because they want to turn it into real estate. So in my opinion, Bibi Netanyahu is here to figure that out on one end, and second one is to really influence and sort of push forward the Americans to conduct a second attack on Iran. Don't ever think, guys, that the conflict between U.S., Israel, Iran is over. You know, this said the war came to an end after 12 days. That was just a pause. It was never over. So, and that's exactly what I'm going to be talking to you, especially in light also of the statement by the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, which, by the way, he got a backlash for it. So we will detail all this as we move forward. So suffice it to say right now is that the Houthis have resumed their attack on Israel, especially targeting not just Ben Gurion Airport. You all remember I shared the pictures with you back then and did the video on this one. Now they are expanding this beside the airport. They have targeted Asshkelon power station. So in addition to other locations, and that tells me right there, the reach of the Houthis now has expanded over Israel. So that's why Israel in panic, like I put on the thumbnail for that one. Let me see if I have, I don't know if I have it. Maybe. No, I don't. I thought I had that. Yeah, I have it right here, guys. Let me share it with you. Allow me to do this, please. Here we go. Houthis. right there. So, and the idea is the panic of it. So because one thing is sure, like I mentioned before, the mainstream media decided not to disclose the massive devastation that happened inside Israel from Iran's missiles and so forth. Why? Because it was a coordinated effort between the Israeli government and Washington to put a lid on the information. And this is where, at least this channel comes in, is to provide you, first of all, the facts and the truth, and second, a different perspective. Of course, it's up to you to reach your own conclusion based on your understanding. So here is what happened. We're going to do one thing at a time. This way we won't get overlapped. So I'm going to be talking about the ship that sunk in the Red Sea. What happened there? I'm going to be talking about the attacks by the Israelis on the Hudaydah, and of course the response on the Houthis. And I'll put all this within the context of really what lies ahead regarding the Iran options moving forward. So as it happened yesterday, the day before, the flag vessels. So there were some members inside the flag vessels. They were attacked by boats. Here is where the key is. And again, I found out what the media is saying versus what happened. I know the Houthis not going to lie about this one. If they said we attacked the ships by using boats and drones, those are what's the word? Controlled boats that they have. So, and that's what they end up doing. However, the British media, maritime security company, is called Ambre, end up saying completely different. Are you going to trust what the British are saying? I won't, but that's me. So basically, what they're saying is that the ship which came under the Houthis attack, and the Houthis announced it themselves that they attacked the Magic Sea ship. It's called the Magic Seas ship. So, and this one, they attacked it. Here is how they attacked it: with gunfire, with missiles, and explosive laden, remotely piloted boats. And that's exactly what happened. And that led to the sinking of the ship. What the British maritime security is saying, oh, the Houthis attacked it with boats and drones. Two separate stories here. The Houthis are saying we used gunfire, missiles. So, and that's exactly what Yahya Saree, he is the spokesperson, is the person right here in this picture. Yahya Saree, he's the spokesperson for the military. And that's what he said, and I quote, because he posted this statement on his social media, Telegram. That's where he posted. It says, and I quote, the Magic Seas ship belonging to a company that violated the ban on entry to occupied Palestinian ports was targeted with 2 unmanned boats, 5 ballistic missiles, 5 ballistics and cruise missiles, and 3 drones. End of quote. So, and to prove this to you, I'm gonna share the link with you for you to, not the link, rather, I'm sorry, to play the where he it's not working for me here, so let me see if I'll make it happen. So funny, all of a sudden some stuff are not working. I always find it fascinating how when you need it the most, that ends up not being. In any event, we're gonna move on because I have to do so. So, and hours after the attack, this is again where Israel comes in, because after this attack, which makes you just ask the logical question: if that ship didn't belong to Israel, why will Israel get involved? Unless the ship was meant to deliver something to Israel. And the Houthis made it clear, no ship, as a matter of fact, any ship that deals with Israel is going to be targeted. Doesn't matter. So, and this is why hours after that, when the Houthis attacked, the Israelis announced on Monday morning that it has bombed the targets in the coastal city of Al Hudaydah, so and other areas in Yemen. Well, once again, I found myself saying the same thing. You know, how much can you bomb a place that you already did? There is nothing left there. So unless you are doing this bombing for just a show, that's the only explanation it could come up. Because what do they have to? What do the Israelis have to target in Hudaydah? They already targeted the port. So, and this is because Hudaydah is under the Houthis' control. So, and this is again where the Houthis comes in, because what the Houthis end up doing, they end up retaliating, which Israel didn't count on that. And once again, this gives you an idea that the Houthis are still standing. Of course, like I always say, and I will keep saying, I know I don't like to beat the dead horse, but the Houthis have put the Arab world into shame. So far, Iran and Houthis, the only two entities that really stood up. So, and that's why the Houthis later on, as I said, responded by firing missiles towards Israel. And of course, the Israeli military came and stated that, oh, we have our jets that, and I put this in quote, struck and destroyed infrastructure. I don't know about that. I do not know about that one. So, and this is where this retaliation of the Houthis comes in. And I think hold on a second, guys, because I need you to hear this for yourself. This way you have leave that. Wow, I am surprised. Anyway, I'm since it's not playing the sound, it's one mute. So and believe it or not, guys, I checked the video before I did live, before I started here, to make sure the sound was working. So, and basically what it was, and it was that Sari, this guy right here, the spokesperson for the military, was saying in Arabic language, we fired the Palestine missile, the hypersonic. That is what he was saying in his statements. And basically, this particular statements highlighted the key aspects of it. And that key aspect is that the Houthis, confirmed that the attacked the Israelis with the missiles, the hypersonic. So, and that's put in perspective that the Houthis have never sort of either got intimidated, gave up on a fight, or retreated, whatever. They are still standing, and they still maintaining the blockade on the Red Sea. Now, just think about it. Hypothetically, should Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz and the Houthis taking care of the Red Sea, you all know what it means. So, and this is again what the Western media is saying versus the facts on the ground, and it to me just lies and more lies. So especially when it says that, oh, we shut down the missiles of the Houthis targeting Israel. No, it didn't happen. So, because here is what Yahya Sariyah said, and he said that the group's forces, meaning Houthis, carried out an operation at dawn yesterday. And here's the detail that I had to look into this to get you exact type of weapons that was used. They used 3 ballistic missiles and 8 drones targeting Lod Airport, Ben Gurion, targeting Ashdod Port in Israel, targeting Asshkelon Power Station, and targeting the Arashad Port, which is Eilat or Eilat Port. 4 locations. So, and that is where, again, what the media is saying versus what took place. And that's why I'm just shocked I couldn't play. I am really surprised, guys, that it gets muted. So, yeah, let me share a screen with you because I need you to see this, so you know what I'm talking about here, because facts matters. Take a look. Here is this video right here. So, and when I play it, the sound doesn't come up.
نفذت القوة
And I just checked
الصاروخية
it earlier.
وسلاح الجو المسير عملية عسكرية نوعية
Here's the
مشتركة
missiles that they
بأحد
launched, the
عشر
Houthis.
صاروخا وطائرة مسيرة توزعت على النحو.
Anyway, so now we know at least where the truth is. So when the Houthis launched this, that's why they responded by launching these ballistic missiles towards Israel. You know, and that's what Sari was saying. Sari, his name Ahmed Sari, Yahya Sari. I'm sorry, Yahya Sari was saying, because during the televised statements that the missiles and the drones successfully reached their target inside Israel. So, and he added one key sentence, and that key sentence where the difference between truth and lies stand. Here is what the Israeli media is saying, that they intercepted the missile. Here is what Yahya Sari is saying, is, and I'm going to say it word for word here. Okay, Sari added, and I quote, in a televised statement that the missiles and drones successfully reached their target, but stated that the interceptor system failed to intercept them. End of quote. Failed to intercept them, which means they end up hitting the target. And once again, guys, I just want to provide you both sides of the arguments, and you reach your own conclusion regarding this. So, now, when you think about all this moving forward, so makes you just wonder, how come the Houthis now resumed the attacks? Because remember, that's been for a while. And the idea that Houthis have always stated, and it's on a record there, that as long as Israel is still targeting Palestinians in Gaza, Houthis is not going to stop. And their demand, meaning the Houthis' demand, was to allow aid into Gaza. But here is the thing. I know it's Israel that controls this, but Israel cannot control this by itself. It is controlling this with the assistance of Arab states, including Egypt. You all remember, right? You all remember the conversation we talked about last time? How the corrupted leader of Egypt, Sisi, that is, or anyone before him, except for at that time was Jamal Abdel Nasser. That was the whole different story. But all the other Arab states that we talked about, you remember, and I talked about this one, I'm not going to keep repeating myself here, makes just to make a point regarding this one here. So for Jordan, for United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and all this, you know, we all know hypocrites as they can get. So when we talk about the blockade of aid, not just Israel, but also the Arab state contributing to that. Yeah, the Arab state themselves. So, and this is where the difference is regarding what the Houthis are doing. Liking this video so far? Don't just be a watcher. Go ahead and hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And don't forget to tap the bell so you will not miss any of my videos or live streams. This way, you will be supporting a channel that stands for the truth and objective reporting. The choice is yours. Thanks for your support. All right. Now, we're going to have to put things in perspective for you guys to understand. Because what the Houthis just did, because I will look at it as an escalation. So they are retaliated. It's within their rights. Simple as that. So what you need to put in context is that this recent retaliation comes at a very sensitive time in the region, West Asia, that is, writ large. So, and why is this important? It's because to those who think that Netanyahu's visit to Washington is to coordinate with Washington regarding the ceasefire in Gaza. That's just part of the big puzzle. What's real into this visit has to do with, are we going to target Iran again? That's what's at the heart of it. But on the other hand, if we are to go with the argument of the possible ceasefire in Gaza, it's hanging on a balance right now. Houthis didn't have to think about it twice. Well, if we fire, we're going to jeopardize the ceasefire. It's because they know, meaning Houthis, they know that they can trust the Americans or the Israelis, no matter what they say. So they made the decision to move forward and launch the missiles, the hypersonic missiles into Israel. They don't care. It's because they follow through with what they say they're going to do. And this one also, not only the Gaza ceasefire, but also you have to think about Iran. And what is very important about this one here? What is important is that the statement that was issued yesterday by Masoud Pezeshkian, he's the Iranian president, which, by the way, he got backlash for it big time. Why? Because he is considering restarting negotiations with the United States over its nuclear program, meaning Iran. How pathetic of Masoud Pezeshkian to be. Is he naive? What do you guys think? That's a question for you. Is he naive, or is he playing some game here? What will be the motive for him to issue a statement saying, oh, I do consider restarting negotiations with the Americans? Are you going to trust the Americans once again, making the same mistake? Especially after what the US did when it dropped the bombs on the Iran most sensitive atomic sites. That just doesn't make any sense. And this is, again, where the key issue is. You have to understand the dynamics of, like I always say, nothing happens in a vacuum when it comes down to issues like this. There are always pieces that you have to put that puzzle together to make sense to you. And all this comes, as I said earlier, within the context. Again, when Pezeshkian said this, I tell you, he just wasn't ready for the reaction that took place regarding his statement. And I don't think so Iranians will tolerate that, because now what we have done to Iran is we united the Iranian of all stripes together. Yeah, some of them don't agree with the government, whatever, but they put all that aside and came together as a unified nation. And for Pezeshkian, who is considered a moderate, but moderate for what? You're talking about survival here. For him to even consider, I think he was naive. That's my opinion. I think he was naive for him to think that he can negotiate on a good faith with the West. You can't trust, especially my country. And I don't shy away. It pains me to say it, but it's the truth. There are good people out here in America. Don't get me wrong. But those people are not politicians. Because you look at how corrupted our system is. And to trust Americans to negotiate, you get to be insane to even consider that. I think the idea for Iran needs to move forward now. Forget about negotiating with the West. Forget about cooperating with the IAEA. Forget about withholding the standard of the international organizations and so forth. And they need to do what's good for them. Like I always say, remember, this country, are we going to threaten North Korea? I mean, literally. Are we going to do that? I don't think so, because we know what the outcome is going to be. And this brings me to the key aspects of thinking about, and again, as putting my geopolitical analyst hat on, I will have to think of certain scenarios. One of them was disclosed yesterday, which I just shook my head when I read it yesterday. I just was like, I can't believe this. And those three scenarios have to do with where this conflict between Iran and Israel /US is heading to. Because you can think again, oh, it's done, war is over. No, it's not. It is just a pause. And the pause that was requested by the Israelis, by the way, not the Iranians. Because the Iranians were ready to keep going. Iran, by the way, Iran did not use all its missile technologies. And this is where you have to go back a few weeks ago. And you have to understand what Netanyahu was able to achieve. He was able to achieve one particular thing. And the thing is shoveling the cards, geopolitical cards, that is, because he was able, doesn't matter how you look at it. We understand that he is, for the crimes he committed, he should be tried and so forth. That's beside the point. I am talking about what the reality on the ground regarding the geopolitical maneuvering. This is what I need you guys to get. And we're going to have to see the reality for what it is. He succeeded, Bibi Netanyahu succeeded in shoveling the cards, because he was able to suspend the negotiations between Washington and Tehran regarding Iran's nuclear program. Because remember, he conducted the strikes on Iran only 2 days prior to the talks. So, because to Bibi Netanyahu's calculations, he was sort of what's the word I'm looking for? He was not assuming. He was convinced. He was convinced that Trump could have reached an agreement with Iran, because if that will happen, because his objective was, well, we're going to have to prevent Iran from acquiring any military capabilities. So, because to Netanyahu, Trump could have reached an agreement with Iran that would have prevented Iran or prevented the militarization of the nuclear program, that is. So, and at the same time, this is why Donald Trump offered to build a nuclear power plant for Iran for $30 billion. You all know that's a lie, first of all. And second, even if we would have gone with that, and the Iranians agree, who do you think is going to control the enriched uranium? Not the Iranians. We are. So you got about 400 kilograms of enriched uranium right now that Iran has in its possession. So, and because the idea was to Netanyahu, his thinking was, you know what? I can't trust Donald Trump because he can flip on me. Meaning Netanyahu there. That's his. I'm just putting myself in his shoes and thinking out loud here. So Netanyahu is saying, I think this agreement will have been in exchange for economic incentives and investments by American companies. And Trump will, of course, inflate the investments to over trillions of dollars. So this is what it's going to be, what was going through Bibi Netanyahu's mind. So, but again, we're going to have to think about, now that Netanyahu did what he did, and he is now in Washington seeking the assistance of the United States to conduct a second attack on Iran. That's why I said, will there be a second war between Iran and Israel? That's a question for you to decide on its answer. So remember, when Israel started bombing or conducted the bombing in Iran, when was that? It was on Friday, the 13th, which is a bad omen here in the US. Friday the 13th. But to Netanyahu, he was thinking in terms of taking advantage. Advantage of what? Of Donald Trump's deceptive tactics and statements towards Iran. Netanyahu knew that what Donald Trump is saying is just a lie. So, but also Netanyahu didn't want to take a chance with that. So he understood Donald Trump's deceptive statements towards Iran on ongoing U.S. contact in preparation for a round of negotiations that took place at that time in Oman. And what's interesting is that those negotiations took place just 2 days after the strike. Because here's the thing, what Bibi Netanyahu's objective was, which of course changed because their possession, Netanyahu's possession, had to evolve rapidly with the outcome, because what Bibi Netanyahu didn't count on is the massive response from Iran. And once again, they are not, when I say they, I am referring to both the Israeli media and the US, not disclosing the massive devastation that existed inside Israel. The complete destructions, because what Iran ended up using. And they used some really advanced, not the top advanced systems, but they caused massive devastations there. So, because here's the thing, the one thing that I needed to understand. So, the position of the Netanyahu at the time, announcing there were 3 main objectives, if you remember. Number 1, it was that destroying the Iranian nuclear program completely. Number 2 is to eliminate Iran missile systems. And number 3, regime change as a result of war within the context of redrawing the map of West Asia, geopolitically speaking. So when you think about all those 3 objectives, none of them was achieved. It's the same arguments that I can make about the Houthis when the Israelis saying we're gonna bomb Houthis. Even the Americans, we say that we're gonna bomb them to the Stone Age. Then what? They're still standing. The Houthis still standing. Israelis had the same calculations. Nothing was achieved. The same thing with Gaza. Netanyahu said, "Oh, I'm going to eliminate Hamas." Didn't. Hamas still standing. And again, it's just to highlight to you. And this leads me to address to you the 3 scenarios that I can think of moving forward. So regarding Iran, Israel, possible second conflict. But before I get to this, you have to talk about the scenarios that I said. I wrote about this. This is why I am very familiar with this. I wrote about it in my Iran book back then. I didn't pull up the excerpt for you guys. I should have. But I did address it for those who have a copy of the book. You can read through it. So here is the link for that one if you ever want to. Let me put the link for those who might be interested in getting a copy of the book, so you guys can learn a little bit more about it. So now, suffice it to say, the 3 scenarios that I say. 1 is Iran's return to negotiations in compliance with American conditions. And like I said earlier, yesterday, the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, was hit hard from all angles for even suggesting to consider negotiating with the Americans. So, and the reason for, and I had to put this scenario for you guys because we have to think outside the box. I know it's not something that any Iranian will entertain at this point, and yet their president did. So, but nonetheless, the arguments will be, if I am to put myself in Pezeshkian's shoes, I will be thinking in terms of, well, you know what? A U.S. bombing will be devastating to us again, will be devastating to our military, will be devastating to our economy, and the repercussions that will cause moving forward. But the pragmatic voice inside me will say to Pezeshkian, well, hold on a second. How did you survive for the last 39 years? You were under the U.S. sanctions since 1979. So what makes you all of a sudden have a change of heart? And second, are you going to trust the Americans again? Because if you do, like the saying goes for us here in the U.S., Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, because it becomes on me. So, and also the logic under this argument was that this scenario will also shift Iran from a state of regional ambitions and influence to one self-absorbed isolation. I don't buy that argument. There are some analysts who talked in these terms. I just don't see that. I don't see that. And this is why the Iranian president, Pezeshkian, he was criticized harshly regarding the resumption of the talks with Washington. So, because his statements, Pezeshkian statements, sparked sort of widespread controversy in Iran, especially when you consider what the US just did to Iran. Second scenario, Iran will surrender and military defeat. I don't see that happening, because even if the United States gets involved second time, which I believe the reason why Netanyahu is in Washington, the ceasefire in Gaza, it's a sideshow. The real issue, it has to do with the second wave of attack on Iran. But we are to go with this scenario. Iran will surrender. So if the US gets involved, and of course, all the while, both regional and international silence persist. Tell me, is there any Arab country that came forward and said, you know what, this is wrong against Iran? You can't just do what you want, America, because you're violating Geneva Conventions, you're violating international law, you're violating UN charters. Tell me if there was any Arab country that came forward and said that. Second thing, the international silence. Beside China did declare openly that it was a violation of what the US did. But China also was willing to support Iran through different means. Of course, my reference here is to Russia. And a lot of people are putting a big question mark. I am even wondering, as one who wrote book about Russia and book about Iran, and I disclosed the idea of this relationship, I think this conflict now is going to take both countries to a different trajectory altogether. I am yet to see what kind of trajectory it's going to be. Suffice it to say that I don't see Iran surrendering to the Americans or the Israel, whatever. And again, I draw the lessons from history, knowing what I know based on the research that I did and learned about, and I'm still learning, because I don't know it all. I'm still learning about the history of the Persian Empire. Alexander the Great himself couldn't defeat them. So what makes us think we could? What makes us think they're going to surrender? The same arguments I've made about Afghanistan back then. What makes us think we're going to defeat Afghanistan? The same arguments I made about Iraq when we went in 2003. What makes us think we're going to control and defeat whatever? Look where Iraq is, which, by the way, is staying silent, because I am wondering about Iraq allowing the presence of U.S. military on its territory. Makes you just wonder. But again, you think of what took place in Syria, and you put the two together and make sense to you. So just to go back to my point, the international silence persists, and this is where I am talking about, if this scenario will take place, what will the major powers, well, who are they? You're only talking about major one, China, basically. Russia to a degree, but North Korea as the wild card. So will they intervene to support Iran? That is the logical question to ask, because both in Washington and in Tel Aviv, they are asking that key question, and they couldn't have an answer to it right now. So, and this, and to add another wild card is the Houthis, what they just did. Because whoever thought, because we didn't hear from the Houthis for a while, all of a sudden they're firing missiles. And that brings back, again, the argument to the fore regarding the air defenses of the Israel systems are not able to deal with the hypersonics. And second thing, after all what happened for the last month or 2 or 3, whatever that is, Houthis still have missiles to fire. Makes you just wonder. So, and this is why I don't see this scenario working, because Iran is not going to allow that. Then there is the third scenario. And the third scenario is what concerns me the most, is a regional war. Once again, I wrote about this in my Iran book, that should Iran be attacked, be ready to see a Middle East that goes into flames, that even God himself will not be able to control, however you perceive God to be. So you all know what I mean. I am using a figurative speech here, but you know what I mean by that. So, but for the regional war, you have to think in terms of this will prompt different entities to get involved. And that is why, because they're going to intervene one way or another. We haven't seen anything from certain groups, and there are many groups. Here is one fact that I need you guys to know, is that Iran, over the last 30 plus years, have developed entities inside the region, funded, trained, and developed administratively and otherwise. And it's not a secret. I'm not sharing classified information here. It's once again, if you know where to look. I did research in this, and I was aware of it because I spent time in the Middle East, so I was aware of those entities. We're not talking just the Hezbollah or Houthis. Those are what you know. They are the entities you don't know about, entities you don't hear about. And that is where that scenario comes in, the idea of a regional war. And because it's going to involve multiple actors, not just one. So, and that is where you're going to have to see the especially, I always think of this scenario, and I ask one fundamental question. What will the pathetic Arab states do? Because most of those countries have American bases on their territories. So to me, they become a legitimate target. So, and that is always, I think, of that scenario. Don't get me wrong, guys. I hope none of this happens. None of this. But again, I don't see any way out for Iran to move forward unless it really acquired the necessary deterrent type of weapons. Simple as that. And I always refer to this. That's why I keep this picture for you guys. I always refer to this as an example. And this is why I'm going to be talking on Saturday. Don't miss this conversation with the Professor Anna Moundock, because there is something going on in Philippines right now. There's some arrangements between Manila and Washington that is going to transform. We're talking military aspects here, so I don't want to spoil it for you. But again, we go back to the Iran topic here. So suffice it to say that it's going to be that idea of that's the only way to ensure survival. So it's because once Iran acquire the deterrent force, Israel will think twice. US will think twice. Pathetic Arab countries will think twice about allowing any launching of missiles or whatever from their territory to target Iran, because they become legitimate targets. And this is exactly where I see this scenario moving forward. Those three scenarios as a possibility, but none of them. The last one is where I see the big concern, in my opinion, that regional war. But again, it's going to be depending again on what those two countries, or three, Russia, China, and North Korea, do. Because that will certainly make us take a step back and reconsider. We have to go back to the drawing board and recalculate our strategic moves, if there are any left. So, and that is why I need you to understand why Bibi Netanyahu is in Washington. The Gaza stuff is just part of a sideshow. But also you have to consider what the Houthis just have done, also to put things in perspective for where that is. So that's how I see it moving forward, guys. So anyway, let me see if you have any comments on this, because that's all I have to share with you today. I'm gonna be looking. I'm still looking at. I know one of you guys asked if I could address the India's being now exposed. And there are some information coming up regarding where India is, and I'm thinking about it. So we'll get to that when that time comes. So. All right, let me see. Let me say thank you first of all to Mike. Oh, Mike R. Much appreciate your support. Why is Azerbaijan antagonizing Russia? Are they stupid? NATO will never allow two Muslim countries in NATO. Armenia has a better chance to join NATO. Great statement, great question, and thank you for your support. FYI, I am preparing a short analysis for you regarding this country. I didn't want to talk much about it. It's because I had to sort of confirm a few things before I did the video for you, and the video will be coming out to answer these specific questions. And yes, as Azerbaijan will have to think twice about fighting something bigger than its size. Of course, the Russians cannot trust allowing, or the Iranian for that matter, also will have to think about that one. So why is Azerbaijan antagonizing Russia? Is because the U.S. is trying to remember. All this has to do with a much bigger picture. And what is the much bigger picture? Is the expansion of BRICS. Remember, we are going to undermine this by any means through different channels in different parts of the world, be they Central Asia, be they Africa, be they Latin America, be they Europe. And that's one of the key questions I'm going to be talking to my dear friend Dr. Warwick Powell tomorrow about whether the Europeans could pivot completely towards the East. It remains to be seen. So, Kevin, thank you once again. Mike R., appreciate you. Kevin Baptist, thank you so much for your continued support. Really appreciate you. Dr. O, given what you have said and what the chat knows to be true, do you feel Iran shows too much restraint, both politically and numerically? Yes. The answer is yes. If I were advising the Iranian government, I will approach it differently. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. That's the only way. I mean, look at it. And again, just to give you guys two examples. North Korea, once again. Of course, North Korea has a deterrent weapon and they will not hesitate to use. But the fact that they know at any moment, if they threaten, they're just going to retaliate. They don't negotiate. They don't. So Iran might end up having to do the same. But Iran showing a restraint sometimes too much will be interpreted as weakness. And that's exactly what happened. The whole reason why Israel went the way it went, because, we took out their scientists, we took out their top military brass. Iran's not going to do anything. Of course, their intelligence service has been penetrated. It's bad. They're going to have to do a major purge regarding their intelligence services in Iran, that is. So, but yeah, it will be interpreted that. So, and the idea that this restraint politically and numerically, it's not working to the benefit of Iran. And the way you think about it is the statements yesterday of the Iranian president, Pezeshkian. Well, I am reconsidering negotiations with the Americans. So I almost start to say, are you that naive? You don't remember what Henry Kissinger said? To be a friend of the U.S. is fatal. Yeah, that's the way I see it, Kevin. So I think Iran will have to move into the direction that they are doing. And you know what I'm referring to here? Eliminating cooperation with the IAEA, you know what comes next. I don't need to say it, but you know what comes next. So thank you very much, Kevin. Rafael, as always, man, much appreciate your continued support and your generosity. So I'm very, very grateful for your support. And by the way, guys, make sure to support the channel through Buy Me Coffee, because I understand, I appreciate the super stickers here, but if you know the difference between what YouTube does versus what Buy Me Coffee, it's so. But I'm very grateful. I want you to know this one, Rafael. So, not too much firepower. Russia and China are arming Iran to the teeth. Today, the Saudi Arabia defense minister is in Iran to negotiate a new approach. And today, we know Russia has the uranium. So, I see your point on two things. Once again, I did right when I wrote the book. Thank you so much, by the way, Rafael. Thank you so much for your support. When I wrote the book about Saudi Arabia, at that time, there were still tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Of course, we wanted to maintain that. But I won't trust, and I disclose this in the book. To those who have a copy of the book, I don't know if you get to that section where I disclosed, you can't trust the Saudis. And that's exactly, I still stand by my decision. So if the Saudis are going to Iran, they're not going because they care. They are going because they got the marching orders from the U.S. to do the U.S. bidding, that the Saudis will do the bidding of the U.S. by talking to Iran. You know, it will be a mistake for Iran to trust the Saudis. So that's why last time when they did the joint military exercises, I was hoping Iran will not display all its cards to the Saudis. You can't trust the Saudis. You can't. So, and that is exactly will be a fail for Iran to consider that one. So the idea as to the uranium is in Russia, I am not aware of that. All I know is that the 400 kilograms of the uranium still in Iran's possession. That's to my knowledge, based on my sources, unless things changed quickly that I'm not aware of, and I am not aware of that. That's why I can say something I am not 100% sure of. All I know is that as of today, the Fardo that was bombed by the US, still operational, still fine. The other two, still fine. Of course, Asfahan was not attacked because there are Russian scientists there. So the Iranian nuclear program, still intact. So the damage that was caused in Fardo, that's just cosmetics. This stuff can be fixed. So, but the one thing for sure that I am aware of, once again, based on my own sources, is that the 400 kilogram of uranium still under Iran's possession, or is in Iran's possession. So, thank you very much, Rafael. Truly appreciate you for your support. So, let me see who else here. Army with Harmony, as always. I am very grateful for your support and buying membership to others. So I thank you for that. And here is a super sticker from you, Army with Harmony. Thank you so much. Can the U.S. stop Israel from collapse? Yes, we could to a degree, but at what expense? It will be at the expense of the average American citizen. And most Americans now are, to a degree, they are literally a little bit are waking up to the reality that who controls Washington is not the politicians, American politicians. American politicians work for the Israeli lobby. You know, it's no secret. So that is what it is. So, but yeah, we will try to prevent, because Israel is our eyes and ears in the region. So yes, we do have pathetic countries like Jordan or subservient. I'm sorry, I'll take this back. Subservient countries like Jordan, like Egypt, like now Syria, which we are putting it together. Even Iraq, I will go as far as saying that one. So those are the winner, the bidding for us. But it's not as much as the Israelis, because the Israelis have the technical capabilities that we are not willing to allow those countries to have. So that's part of, we will try to stop that by any means. But if it happens, it happens, and especially if Iran develop the deterrent capability, that's going to change the dynamics in the region. I am keeping my eyes open on this. I might have to do an update on my Iran book to put in some new information into that. Same with the Saudis. So I might consider that one. So thank you so much for your super sticker. And David Chow, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Truly appreciate your kind support. So For those guys, as you know, I am planning on heading out to Asia. So far, we have about the last calculations that I looked at, and I wrote it right here. The number is 1535. That's so far what we have. The fundraising, we are far, far, far below. I am not going with the target amount anymore. It was about $11,000. I'm not doing that anymore because it's become convinced. I am convinced we won't have enough time to generate that kind of funding for me to go to the specific locations that I have in mind. So what I am going to end up doing, I am going to limit my trip to only 2 locations. That's it. And for that, I'm going to change the amount for the fundraising to $5,000. That's it. So I hope there will be some wealthy donors or supporters who will support this trip. I will be grateful forever. And I know you guys doing your share, you're doing your part, and I'm very grateful to all of you. This is why I'm saying, if you want to support the channel or support the trip, just do it through Buy Me Coffee. So I will greatly appreciate it. If I am to go, I will be going probably in September. So there's only about a month and a half for us to reach the $5,000 target amount. So, and I'll put a graph for you to see all the numbers. But so far, we are at this number, $1,535, $1,535. So anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Here is the link for the channel here to those who wants to support the channel here. Let me put it in the chat box. And please don't forget to hit the like button and share the video with others. So I am noticing the new subscribers. I don't know. You know how it is. It is what it is. So I would greatly appreciate if you can hit the like button and share it with others. So I keep doing the best for this to bring you great guests, because again, I don't go with the most popular stuff. I don't do that because I care about you learning something, because that's what I want you to get out of this. You're giving me your time, you're giving me your attention, and the best I can do is to ensure that the information you are receiving is of a great value to you. That will help you at least have a better or acquired a better understanding. So I'm very, very grateful to all of you for your support. So I look forward to seeing you next time, which will be, I think I might do live for you tomorrow. I'm going to be looking at the topic, that particular topic about India. There's a lot of stuff going on with, and I'm sure you heard what happened in BRICS with India not supporting one clause into the final communique, and that pertained to Gaza. Whoever thought, right? So anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you next time. As always, remember, geopolitics impact daily life in more ways than one. Till next time. Bye-bye.